I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Ship Authority Board on the 18th of August. I hope everybody's well in this time of COVID. I'd like to read a couple of announcements as is custom. I'd like to inform everyone that Steve Batty of All Media Productions making a video and audio recording of today's meeting, which is in public session for the Martha's Vineyard Community Television, known as MVTV. I'd also like to inform everyone that Sean Driscoll, the Authority's Communications Director, is making audio and video recording at today's meeting. If there's anyone else making an audio recording of the meeting, please identify yourself by pressing the raise your hand icon, or if you're joining by phone, pressing *9 on the keyboard. And when you're recognized, please state your name to Sean for the record. Thank you. Sean?
Don't see anybody.
No? Nope. I'll further read a statement regarding remote participation in response to Governor Baker's executive orders concerning the necessity to conduct public meetings in line with social distance guidelines during the current state of emergency involving COVID-19. All board members are participating remotely in today's meeting because their physical attendance would be unreasonably difficult. All board members are participating in the meeting by the Zoom video conferencing app. All members will be clearly audible to each other. And as a result of the remote participation, any and all votes taken by the members today shall be by roll call vote. I'd also at this point announce that we are going to go into executive session following the general meeting. And at that point, if there's nothing else, we will turn it over to the general manager, Mr. Davis.
Okay, so I think the first thing on your agenda today is to approval of the minutes from the May 19th, 2020 meeting in public session.
That's correct. Is there anybody have any additions, deletions, modifications, comments on those minutes? Failing to hear any questions, is there a motion to accept the minutes as presented?
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes as presented.
I'll second.
Thank you. We have a motion that's been made and seconded to accept the motion. If there's no discussion, it comes to a roll call vote. All in favor?
Jones, aye.
Wilson, aye.
Tierney, aye.
Randy, aye.
Malcolm, aye. The motion is accepted. Thank you. Mr. Davis?
Next, we have the Port Council report on their August 5th, 2020 meeting. I think Mr. Huss will be brought in here.
There he is.
Oh. We can't hear you.
You're muted. Still muted.
There. I'm not muted now.
Nope,
Okay.
we got
There
you.
we
All right. Okay, at our meeting, basically, we updated the present activities and performances, and it was reported that we're running at about 90% of our original schedule. The real problem we're having is face mask enforcement. Since many people will put their face mask on, and then as soon as someone comes up to them, they as soon as they leave, they take it off. So and again, there's not much we can do about that other than keep asking. We reviewed the business summary, which you will be doing later. The real soft area that we have is, of course, walk-on traffic. I believe it seems to be getting a little bit stronger, at least according to the crowds that we're having. But it still looks at that maybe the deficit this year will still be in the $20 to $25 million range. All right. We reviewed the MV Katama dry dock. We discussed the 2021 summer fall operating schedule and it was unanimously approved as presented. We also discussed the possibility of solar on Thomas B. Landers parking lot. And had which I think everybody agreed would be a good idea if it's cost effective. And that's the real thing, is will it be cost effective? We had a demonstration of the e-ferry ticketing, and it should be available. At that point, it said a week or two, so it should be available possibly this week or fairly close. They're just trying to get the few glitches out. And then we asked about the concessions on the boats, whether we can have food and so on. Centerpoint says that there's a couple of problems. Some of the problems are there are people wearing masks. Also, they use a lot of foreign people who come in and work behind their counters, and they are not here this year. So the number of people they have available is down. They said that they will try and put more vending machines on some of the boats. Other than that, I think we talked about, that was about it. All right. Thank you. Any questions?
No.
Yeah, Bob?
Yeah.
Yeah, with an email from George Belko, that said there was a discussion about forming a committee to look into establishing a reserve fund. Can you tell me a little bit about that conversation?
Well, I believe George brought that up, he brought it up again only because he had brought it up the month before. That he feels, and so do I, and I think so do the whole Port Council, that would be advantageous if we could get the state to allow us to have some kind of rainy day fund, we'll call it, so that in the future, if something like this happens again, we won't be running around asking the state to support us and so on, that we will have at least some funds available for a loss. And as far as I know, it has not really gone too far. We thought possibly we would have a committee made up of board and Port Council members, or look into it, or someone would look into it. And at this point, I guess people are excited about it, would like to have it, but I think with all that's going on, it has sort of taken and has been put off a little bit. So hopefully that can happen in the future.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else? Okay, I guess you're all set, Jim.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it, Robert. Mr. Davis?
All right, so next, under the general manager's report, update on COVID-19 measures. So as of August 9th, we have been operating the originally approved scheduled trips on the Vineyard route, with 5 vessels operating weekdays and 4 vessels operating on the weekends. Also, as of August 9th, we have been operating the originally approved schedule of trips on the Nantucket route for the vehicle ferries. The lone exception is that the MV INO is running 4 of the 5 scheduled trips at this point, although the 5th trip is being operated on Friday and Sunday evenings. We expect these service levels to continue through Tuesday, September 8th. Starting on the Wednesday after Labor Day, the motor vessel Martha's Vineyard is scheduled for its annual repair period, and as a result, the MV Nantucket will be taking its place on the schedule. and the MV Katama will be taking the Nantucket's place. On the Nantucket route, the MV Sankaty will operate Monday through Friday. It'll be replacing the MV Gayhead, which it too is heading for its scheduled repair period. As for preventative actions, vessel crews, terminal employees, and bus operations continue to do an exceptional job of cleaning. We continue to assign additional crews to perform deeper cleaning at night. Capacities on our buses have currently been reduced to 50% of their rated capacity, which in some cases is more than the number of seats on the bus. Seating capacity has been reduced on the MV I&O to about 60% to allow for social distancing. And the passenger capacities on the traditional ferries have likewise been reduced, taking into account weather conditions and the number of interior seats that we have on board the vessels. We continue our efforts to source cleaning materials and hand sanitizer. We did receive our order for the electrostatic sprayers as an additional sanitizing tool, as well as an order for foggers. We've used these pieces of equipment to optimize the delivery of disinfectant on surfaces at both shoreside and the vessels. We continue to put information on best practices regarding health measures on our internal learning management system for our employees. The vessel crews, we continue to begin their watch by giving them a wellness screening by a trained medical professional. Shoreside personnel are given a wellness questionnaire, which they need to complete and provide to their supervisor before giving clearance to report to work. And most importantly, we have told our employees that in no circumstances should they be coming into work when they are sick. Not only for their own safety, but safety of their fellow crew members and also for our customers. Once again, I'd like to remind everyone that we have created a dedicated landing page on our website for coronavirus updates at www.steamshipauthority.com/2019 coronavirus. So we ask our customers to continue to check there for updates, as well as our Facebook and Twitter pages, our e-news and other media outlets. As changes are made, we'll continue to update those. Regarding some future considerations, the most important thing there is schedule modifications. So as we'll show you shortly, we continue to monitor traffic patterns and demands. Among the things that we consider are what vehicle reservations we have and what commodities are being transported, the ability for passengers to accessibility, social distancing, as well as our ability to provide emergency services if need be. At this point in time, we anticipate running the approved operating schedule through October 19th. The exception to this will be that the MV I&O will continue to operate only 4 round trips daily instead of the 5 that's been scheduled. But to get a better illustration of what traffic and reservation activity we have, I'd like to turn it over to Mark Rosen, that he has some shots to share with everyone.
Good morning, everyone.
Hi, Mark.
Hi.
Good morning, Mark.
Morning. Okay, Sean prepares the slide. So this first chart is showing the reservation activity by month. And for August, it's just for the period of the 21st to the 31st, because we're showing future reservations. And as you can see, we've seen an increase from the end of July through August. Right now, comparing the last 10 days of August, we're at 105% or more reservations we had last year. And a lot of this is to do with some of at the end of the year, we had some big events on the islands, which have been unfortunately canceled and have been replaced by some vehicles. Also looking at, I think the school delays this year is impacting some of the travel patterns as well. So it's kind of extending the summer a little bit for people. This is just showing the same information in a different format. This is the actual vehicle travel over the transfer bridge. We're seeing a little bit of softness in the passenger numbers compared to July. We're down about 5% roughly compared to where we were in July. The automobiles, you can see, are in the increase, but the larger trucks are down. They're trending right around 82% for the month. This is the net daily reservation activity, basically showing how we're catching up from the lack of activity in April and May. And this is the credit card payment information showing what our percentage of credit card receipts are compared to the year before. So for the first 3 weeks through the 17th of April, we're looking at August, excuse me. We're looking at autos trending around 102%, large trucks at about 82%, and passenger trucks around 97% compared to the year before.
Anyone have any questions regarding that?
Yes, Jim.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry about that. I'm trying to keep my audio muted with the construction work going on here. Quick question. Given these numbers, what impact do you see on our projected loss? Or is it too early to say?
Looking at, and I'll go over that in the treasurer's report.
Okay.
So I'll address that for what we looked at July and going forward.
That'd be fine. Thank you. One further question. Bob, in your discussion of COVID and the precautions that are being taken in terms of social distancing and making more room on vessels and buses and so on, has there been any further work on mask use while on the boats, given the report that Mr. Huss just gave?
Yeah, so we continue to advise our employees on a daily basis about the use of masks. We have announcements that are broadcast at the terminals on the PA systems there. We have signage up at the terminals. On the mainland, we have variable message signs that are displaying mandatory mask. We do have it on board the vessel, but it continues to be a challenge. People maybe social distance at one point, and then someone approaches them, and it becomes an issue. In terms of it, I think we're getting a high level of acceptance of this of the mask wearing, but obviously we're not getting 100%, and we continue to make those announcements. On board the vessels, they're making announcements multiple times during a voyage. We have modified the announcements to notify them. For instance, over in Nantucket, it's a mandatory mask in the downtown area. So the last message that that's done as the boat's docking is for masks required in not only Nantucket, but also the Vineyard towns also have a similar requirements. So
Thank you.
and I should point out, Falmouth recently enacted it for Woods Hole Village as well as Main Street here in Falmouth.
Could I ask a question? Mr. Malcolm?
Yes, of course. Of course.
Are we permitted, or if no one knows the answer to this, can we find out the answer? To basically send via email and post on the boats that to the extent that someone's found to violate this policy, after we have told them, that we're going to prohibit them from using steamship vessels for a certain period of time, like the airlines do. I don't see why we couldn't do that. I think it's outrageous that people just basically thumb their nose at the rules. I mean, I've seen it a couple of times on the boats. Now I've actually witnessed our employees telling somebody to put a mask on. The minute the employee turns their back inside, the person takes it off. It's unacceptable.
And in the Commonwealth, we do have the governor's executive order regarding masks. Also includes an exception that if someone reports that they can't wear a mask, we're prevented from asking why. So we do ask that in those instances that people go outside on the outdoor decks if at all possible, but obviously different weather conditions and things like that, they make their way in, so.
But that's not answering my question. And that's not the question I asked. I basically think that we should think about a policy. This thing isn't going away anytime soon. I think we should think about a policy that at least we publish and we post, that unless there's a medical excuse, we take the issue of mask wearing seriously. And to the extent that someone is violating our policy, there may be sanctions in terms of not being able to use our vessels. We gotta do something like that. I mean, I see it all the time.
So as a public transit agency, I guess we'd have to have Terrence look into that. But the other issue is that on the vessels that we do have state police details, they have informed us that if it is an issue, that to notify them, and they will go over and talk with the customer as well. So we don't have the ability to fine people for the mask. We don't have the enforcement that enforcement powers, but the state police, if they are on board the vessel, would.
Bob, to that point then, are we using the state police? Have we actually contacted them on any incidents?
I'm informed, yes, we have. On certain instances, we have.
Thank you.
We actually did have an incident where local police were notified as well regarding it.
So council will get back to us as to what we can do permissibly. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay. Right.
Okay. If no other questions in that regard, next item is the business summary for the month of June. So in June, total number of passengers carried on both routes was down 42.2% versus a year ago. We're over 141,000 passengers. The total number of automobiles carried on both routes for June was down 14.7%, or over 7,500 automobiles. The total number of trucks carried on both routes for June was down 6.5%, or over 1,200 trucks. The overall number of cars parked for both routes in June was down 55.4%, or over 11,000 cars parked. So for the first half of the year, passengers are down 45.2%, or over 522,000 passengers versus a year ago. Our automobiles are down 29.8%, or nearly 59,000 automobiles versus a year ago. Our trucks are down 21.8%, or over 21,000 trucks. And our cars parked are down 59.3%, or over 35,000 cars parked for the first 6 months of the year. For June, the net operating income, and yes, income, for the month of June was $2.6 million. That was $1.465 million lower than what the operating budget called for. Our operating revenues and other income was $10,865,000, and that was $3,244,000 lower than our budget. Meanwhile, our total operating expenses and other expenses were $8,266,000, or $1,778,000 lower than our budget. So on the revenue side, our auto revenue was down 753,000. Our freight revenue was down 202,000, while our passenger revenue was down 1,747,000. And parking was down 376,000. For our operating expenses, our wages were down $625,000. Our maintenance expense was down $556,000. Some of that's going to end up being a timing issue because of the delays in getting the MV Container to dry dock. As well as, but we had some upticks in terms of the MV Nantucket maintenance being performed, as well as the O Plus piers being performed that hit June instead of May. Meanwhile, our vessel fuel oil expense was down $366,000 for the month. Fuel came in at $1.45 per gallon. We had assumed $2.21 per gallon. And then during June, the vessels made a combined 1,987 trips. And that's a decrease of 465 trips versus our budget, or 19%. On the Vineyard route, we had 0 canceled for mechanical, 0 for weather, and 320 for because of traffic demands. And on the Nantucket route, we had 12 trips canceled for mechanical, 0 for weather, and 190 trips canceled for traffic demands. So for the first 6 months of the year, the net operating loss as of the end of June was $20,193,000, or some $10,285,000 higher than what we had anticipated. Operating revenues and other income of $32,613,000 is down $15,186,000. Operating expenses and fixed charges of $52,806,000 are down $4,901,000. Year to date, the vessels have made a combined 8,176 trips, and that represents a decrease of 2,731 trips, or 25% versus budget. And that's almost primarily due to adjustments in the schedules because of COVID. So with that, Mark or I would be happy to answer any questions you may have regarding the June business summary. Not hearing anything? Moving on to current projects. So first one we have is an update on the MV Container dry docking. So I'll ask Mark to come up and walk you through the presentation.
Mike here. Okay. Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
So we have the container is presently in dry dock at Thames Shipyard in New London, Connecticut. And the first photo, she's had all her external coatings applied. Excuse me. Okay, the external coatings have been applied, and we're just awaiting return of the bow thruster, and we anticipate the undocking of the vessel on the 31st of August. Next slide. This is a photograph of the stern frame area showing the new port rudder, as well as the shafting installed. Next. And this is a finished product with the first coat of anti-fouling applied, showing the propeller, the port propeller, as well as the rudder. We did some extensive life extension with the anchor windlass. We removed it and overhauled it, and this is a picture of it back in place, along with deck coatings in the forward area. And this is a project of we're hydroblasting the main deck using an ultra-high pressure blasting of 35,000 PSI to remove the external coatings and application of the second coat. We currently are 90% complete on that project, so we're getting very close to the end. Just like that, it's important that these projects, coating projects, go forward, because as with the older vessels, we get closer to the effective diminution or steel corrosion limits, and this is to protect against steel renewal. Next. And this is just another photo from the deck showing the coatings, the coating applications. So currently, we have a main containment dry dock repair cost analysis of the contract value of $788,507. We have 19 change orders totaling $350,255. And just want to add that we've done a lot of extensive in accordance with getting ready for our ISM SQMS audit next year. We've been going at the critical equipment, generators, pumps, just bringing the vessel up to ISM standards. And the total value of the change orders to date at $350,255 for a total contract of right now $1.138 million. Any questions, anyone?
Yeah, I have a quick question, Mark. Thank you for that. In terms of the change orders, things like the hull that you just spoke about, that was $154,000. Was that something we should have anticipated, that we'd need to blast and coat the underwater hull area?
Yeah, I think you will see. You'll see that more costs and coatings going forward, because you either replace steel or you do coatings, right. And we prefer to do that. So it was not in the original budgeted amount, and when we went into the dry docking, as a result of extensive gauging as well, that's how the change order was arrived at.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you very much, everyone.
Okay. So,
My video still on? Is my video still on?
no, it's not.
We can hear you, but not see you.
That's fine. I don't know why the host has asked you to start your video. Where the hell do you do that?
You can ignore it if you want to. It's up to you.
Bottom left.
Oh, I got it.
There we go.
Oh, goodness. It has a mind of its own.
All right. So next, the staff wanted to provide a brief update on our efforts to deploy e-ferry mobile ticketing. For the past few years, the authority has used various ticketing programs to provide customers on our high-speed ferry with a mobile ticketing option. Initially, these efforts have led to limited acceptance as we sought to overcome some of the challenges of scanning smartphones and other devices outside in the elements. Some of the trials included a customer-activated show and sale, where the traveler triggered a one-time use animated image that was visually verified by a steamship employee while the customer was boarding. While this process worked for the high-speed service, due to the reservation requirements that customers need for that vessel, it did end up being burdensome to the customers to find the emails and to trigger the image. Another trial that we included was an activation of a barcode, which would then be held to the scanners for verification. A few of the issues that we had to deal with were the direct sunlight. The barcode wouldn't have enough contrast to be read by the readers, as well as the conditions of the user's phones, such as a screen protector, whether they had turned their lighting down, whether they had a cracked screen, or whether their auto rotate feature was turned on. So more recently, the staff has been working on a near field communication ticket, an NFC ticket. that uses technology similar to Apple Pay, Google Pay, as well as to our current coupon book card, the current cards that we have for our coupon books. This type of ticket was introduced in the high-speed ferries at the end of December last year. But we've been working on it for the traditional ferries since then, and would like to show you our progress in that regard. So I'll ask Sean and Mark to walk you through a little demo.
Cover Frank for a second, would you?
Okay, so right now we're in the quality control phase, testing, making sure that the settlements go through as far as credit card payments, making sure that the ticket usage is tracking on our revenue reports as well as on our traffic reports, making sure that different types of devices are working the way they should be, as well as different forms of payment, whether it's a Discover card, American Express, basically finishing up the details. We have one hardware issue in Oak Bluffs we're working on right now to close out. And with this ticketing, we're implementing for the first time actually accepting Apple Pay and Google Pay. So if anyone's familiar with that online, it's going to take the hassle of entering your customer information such as credit card number, email address, phone number automatically if it's associated with your Apple Google Pay, bring that right over in the payment screen.
So we can do that now.
So this is casting from Sean's phone real time right now. So what we've been able to do is limit it down to one screen for the purchase, no login or anything like that, make it simple. You can pick which island you want to choose on the same screen, round trip or one way, and the amount of people traveling in your party. And if Sean's using an Android phone right now, so that's why you have the Google Pay automatically being selected. And if it was an iPhone, it would have Apple Pay. And if you're not set up with that, you can use the other payment to enter your credit card information. This also will work from a desktop, laptop, or any other device. Yep. So Sean's entered the information in. Now he's got to click to pay with Google Pay.
Hiding my credit card.
So the black screen was to hide Sean's personal information. That's how quickly the order will process. In addition to getting your order right to your phone, you also get an email address. So if you wanted to buy a ticket for, since say my kids never have money and they wanted a ticket to go, I could buy it and just email it to them. They could download it to their phone. And once it's there, he'll click on the passes. And there shows all his tickets he's been testing with. And there's the real ticket. Notice there's no barcode. You can see the logo for hold near your phone. It works just like Apple Pay and Google Pay at this point, or your cards you use to commute in the boat. You'll hold it up to the reader. It'll instantly read it. Whether it's one person or in this case, 2 adults, 2 minors and a bike, it'll pop up the screen and you'll be able to go. So there'll be no contact between the customer and any employee. So it'll be a contactless ticket. We don't have to deal with any of the issues in the past, such as bright screen, auto rotate, or any of those issues that we had that slowed down the process. We could still take it. It just took a little bit longer to process the ticket in the collection. If anyone's been online watching, you know how quickly the RFID cards work for our commuters. The tickets will have the feature on the ticket to automatically refund the ticket back if you want with a one click, so you won't have to call the reservation department or a ticket seller. They'll have a link to refund the ticket. If you scroll down a little bit on this ticket, Sean, and then it has GPS marking, so if you want to know how to get to the terminals, you'd have it. You can call the reservation office, the parking, so we have links embedded right into the ticket for these popular items. Okay. Any questions?
Can I just give you $20 and get a ticket?
Yes, you're still able to buy a paper ticket, yes.
For a slow boat.
But in real time, when I was in Woods Hole yesterday, I was able to purchase a ticket and have it on my phone within 30 seconds. Soup to nuts all the way through. And we're also looking at adding geofences, so that way when you're on the property, the ticket will automatically pop up on your phone and your wallet, so you don't have to go look for it in your wallet.
Thank you very
Scary.
much.
What was that?
I just said thank you very much.
Okay, you're welcome. All right, thank you.
Okay.
All right. Next, we have the report on the proposed 2021 summer and fall operating schedules for the Martha's Vineyard route. The staff wanted to present with the members its draft report of the proposed 2021 summer and fall operating schedules for the Martha's Vineyard route for their consideration. This report is prepared pursuant to Section 15A of the Authorities Enabling Act, following a petition that was filed by 58 Falmouth residents. By way of background, earlier this year, in April and May, the authority advertised its proposed 2021 operating schedules for both routes. On May 29th, a petition was received objecting to the proposed scheduling of the 5:30 a.m. trip from Woods Hole to the Vineyard. And a public hearing was held on June 11th to consider testimony. The Enabling Act now requires the authority to issue a report either maintaining its original proposed schedule or making modifications to them and explaining the reasons for that recommendation. In your meeting packet, the members will find a draft report for their consideration. This report includes testimony received from 15 parties during the hearing, as well as 63 written comments received following the hearing. The report also provides a brief history of the early morning trips from Woods Hole. As detailed in the report, staff believes there should be no mistake in anyone's mind that the SSA's paramount interest is to ensure that the islands of Martha's Vineyard and Nantucket are provided with adequate transportations of persons and necessities of life on a year-round basis. The island's economies are and will continue to be strongly affected by the cost of the transportation services to and from the mainland, whether it is paid for entirely through passenger, freight, or automobile fares, or through a combination thereof. Either inadequate service or unnecessary expensive service will jeopardize their future. Frequency and reliability of service are still key to this sustainability and well-being. Accordingly, the interest of the island is paramount and must be the overriding consideration in evaluating the SSA's proposed operating schedules. That does not preclude, however, attempts to identify reasonable steps that can be taken to address issues and concerns about the freight and other traffic in the SSA's affected communities. In that regard, the SSA's Long-Range Vineyard Transportation Task Force was created. Working together with the mainland and island communities, along with public input, in an attempt to identify reasonable steps that can be taken to address issues and concerns about freight and other traffic in each of those communities on a long-term basis. This past fall, the members approved the creation of the task force, but due to the ongoing concerns regarding COVID-19, it wasn't until this past few weeks that representatives to that group were finally designated. As the report in the staff summary, the staff is requesting that the members issue the authority's report on the proposed 2021 summer operating schedules for the Martha's Vineyard route in the form accompanying the staff summary with what other revisions they may determine are appropriate. Secondly, to approve the authority's 2021 summer operating schedules for the Martha's Vineyard route as set forth in the staff summary for the reasons explained in their report. And third, to approve the authority's 2021 fall operating schedules for the Martha's Vineyard route as similarly set forth in the attachments. At their August 5th meeting, the Port Council voted to recommend that the members approve the authority's 2021 summer and fall operating schedules for the Martha's Vineyard route as proposed, and that the members also issued the authority's report on the proposed 2021 summer operating schedules for the Vineyard route. So with that, if anyone has any questions, myself or Steve Sayers is with us on the Zoom. We'll be happy to answer any questions.
May I make some comments?
Yes, please.
I'd like to point out a couple of things. One is I'm very hopeful that the working group and the task force can make some headway on this. I'm concerned about some of the tone that I hear in the letters from the selectmen on the vineyard. For example, one of them said, just 9 months ago, a public hearing was held on this same topic, as if it still is a bothersome issue, and I don't know why they're bringing it up again. The Oak Bluff selectmen referred to yet another request and characterizes the effort to review this schedule as a mean-spirited and an abusive abuse of the public process. And going into conversations about how to remedy this situation with that kind of attitude isn't helpful. So I'd ask the selectmen on the vineyard to please take these concerns seriously. We're not just making it up. The report itself comments that there's been no material change in the relevant circumstances. And I should point out that there's also no change in how we evaluate these questions. The underlying reasons for the complaints remain the same. The bottom line is it's too early for that much traffic and noise. It's just simply too early. And we never really talk about how early is too early. So we're talking about a 5:30 boat. And even though we have rules where the trucks can't show up until such amount of time, for all intents and purposes, if you have a destination point where everybody has to arrive at a certain time, there's the time on the road towards that destination point. So if we have a 5:30 boat, arguably we start having traffic at 4:30. So if people are waking up at 4:30 every single morning during the warm months, can't have the windows open, that means in order to get a good night's sleep, they're supposed to go to bed at 8:30 at night. And that's not realistic. So we're asking Falmouth Woods Hole residents to simply suck it up again and not really giving them any relief from the issues that they're complaining about. I realize that we've reduced the size of the trucks, and so therefore, hopefully the amount of noise. But you know, for me, a soft alarm still wakes me up as much as a loud alarm. And so just because it's a little quieter, it's still waking all of us up at the same hour. The narrative, basically what we're coming down to is we're making our decision based on who tells the most compelling narrative. And in short, it sounds as if the 5:30 boat is necessary because of the summer demands on traffic on the island. I'm wondering, there's so much traffic on the islands. I've gotten stuck in traffic jams. Would it really make any difference? I mean, if you have gridlock traffic, does it make any difference whether you add more to it? Maybe the vineyard needs to find different ways of dealing with the traffic. Question, what options are there for a different assortment of boats that provide the transportation between Woods Hole and the vineyard? Is there another selection in our fleet that would allow us to make the same transfer or, you know, accomplish the same goals but with fewer trips? And I think those are all my notes. But I would really like to see some changes made. And if we could ask the task force and the working group to come up with some suggestions. I mean, what if we kept it now? So we have the earliest freight boat at 6 o'clock in the morning. And we work together to figure out how to help the vineyard navigate maintaining the current schedule of 6 o'clock in the morning and not changing it for the summer months. Thanks, I appreciate your time.
Anyone else have any comments they'd like to make? Mr. Jones?
Well, Kate, you asked at the last meeting and a meeting before, I think, kind of pleaded that we look into this deeper, this whole subject, which I have done. I don't know if I'll give you all of my findings, but I understand where the people are coming from Woods Hole and those that live along the road. I understand all about the request for New Bedford, and which keeps coming in like the tide. I've been on this board for 19 years now, going on 19, and it comes and goes, and nothing has ever happened. And I don't know, it would take an awful lot to make it happen, but that may be something that this board can look at and revisit, but it's just not economically feasible to do. So leaving that, I also looked at, you don't stand alone on this. You know, there's a 530 boat out of Hyannis. And the people, there's homes and residents around the harbor there, and sound travels quicker and faster across the water than it does in an inland situation. And we've had, over the years, people who complained about, you know, some this or that, or noise from the Steamship Authority. And we've tried to mitigate it as much as we can. I myself worked on the harbor for a number of years. My office was right across the street from the Steamship Authority. I heard the noise daily, but I can't ever remember that it was something that I say, oh my gosh, it's noisy or whatever. It wasn't 5 o'clock in the morning, but nevertheless, I know the noise levels. And it was mentioned on one email that the noise just increases throughout the day. Whether it does for them,
early morning stuff.
if they, please let me go.
Yeah, let him finish, please. Stephen.
You can debate this if you wish. I'm not trying to get a debate. I'm just trying to get my findings, and they are debatable. But the fact of the matter is, you know, I listen with interest to some of the testimonies of, well, I've lived here 12 years, I've lived here 15 years, I've done that. And I kind of look at myself. I lived in Hyannis all my life, and I've got 4 generations back to the 1800s living in Hyannis. When I was growing up, that the only sightseeing boat in Hyannis when I was in school was a catboat run by a mute, very delightful man, but that's the only sightseeing boat in Hyannis. I took swimming lessons at what is now a boat ramp. I've dug cohogs and clams along the shores, and now it is a full-blown harbor. As one of the guys said to me who was doing the Georgia, he said, I've never seen a more congested harbor. And that's what's happened to Hyannis. But the people of Hyannis have lived with this the same as the people of Woods Hole having to live with this. And when we put this schedule out, there was nobody that complained. Nantucket has a later boat. I think it's, what, 6 o'clock or something like that. The Vineyard Haven has a 5:30 boat, and they go through residential areas in those trucks to get there. It's a matter of life. It's, you know, for me, having lived in Hyannis all my life, it's grown up around me. For people who are moving in, they move into an area, they've got to know that they're in an industrial area. There's no question. Either you try to mitigate it. I don't say, you know, we're trying to do what we can for it. It's the same with the airport. But in any event, I looked at, I read the emails. from the Woods Hole folks, I've read the emails from the vineyards. And the emails from the vineyards, I see letters from the selectmen from Edgartown. I see the police chief from Edgartown. I see Tisbury. I see Oak Bluffs. I see comments from the, from the other elected officials, plus, truckers and residents. And then in reaching a conclusion, I looked at the enabling legislation and what is our charge? Our charge basically is to provide service to the islands in Nantucket. And in the wisdom of the legislature, they gave the representatives from the islands a 35% vote. Kate, you and I and Maura could stand hand in hand in solidarity and yell and scream on a subject, but if we didn't have just a one member from the island, we are in silence. But we haven't run the authority that way. And I could hardly ever remember leverage votes. And, I think we do what we can. If somebody says they're woken up from it, I'll believe them. I've testified similar here on the airport in some of the buzzsaws that go over my head when my window is open. But the fact of the matter is that doesn't wake me up. It wakes me, once I'm awake, I hear it halfway across the sound. And I live in Hyannis. I live, about a mile's throw from the harbor. I hear the whistles in the morning. I hear the airport and the thing. Just part of where I live. I still love where I live. People still come and buy houses here, and it's an unfortunate thing. And if there's any way we can mitigate it and this group comes up with, some solution, well, let's go about it. But I think you have a certain amount of acceptance. You have to have, when you live next to a main highway, a state road or whatever, and it would seem to me that the folks, the police department in Falmouth, should be all over this if these trucks are speeding. As a state road, I'm sure that speed limits and things like that are set by, the Department of Transportation. I know that your predecessor of Catherine Norton tried to put signs up for no jailbreaking and things of that nature. I think they made them take them down. Bob, maybe you can correct me or fill me in on that. But anyways, I understand the frustration. I truly do, and I understand what those people are talking about. I started protesting the increase in traffic in Hyannis years before I was on the council, when I was chairman of the Waterways Committee. And I went up to the State House, I went to the governor's office, and I did my protesting. But the fact of the matter, it's here, we live with it, and I think that's one of the reasons that neither Nantucket nor the town of Barnstable had any protests for the schedule, which is, in our case, in Hyannis, the same as Woods Hole. So I've said my piece, I've said enough, and I only did this, Kate, because you said to give it more thought. Well, I give it more thought. And good or bad, that's it. So I'm through, thank you.
Any other members have any comments, or Mr. Rainey?
I agree with what's been said. I think it's important for the communities to have a dialogue. I don't know that there are going to be any different outcomes or different solutions. I'm hopeful that the task force will be able to bring the communities of the Vineyard and Falmouth together, and maybe something good will come out of it. I don't know, but I think it's important to at least have a dialogue where attitudes are left at home, and we look at options. I don't know if there are any. again, but it's important to explore that.
Jim? Jim?
I'm sorry, Ms. Tierney?
Yes,
Will
thank
you-
you. I agree with Rob, but I also feel like at this point in time, I've been kind of quiet about this aspect. But New Bedford needs to be considered. And I know, I don't want to bring it up now, given our financial position. I think that would be highly inappropriate. But at one point in time, we were thinking about assessing New Bedford $5 million to cover the Steamship Authority's losses. Okay? New Bedford gets very, very, very little revenue from the Steamship Authority. And I think it provides, especially with C Street, very important benefits to the Steamship Authority that shouldn't be discounted in terms of an expansion of its position going forward. I do recognize, that presently, and until we get over the financial woes that this pandemic has caused us, that's maybe not particularly the best discussion to have right now. But New Bedford is going to need to expand its position with the Steamship Authority. So, I just think I should put that out there. I mean,
Thank you.
Falmouth wants that. Oh, I'm sorry, that was my fault. Sorry, Jim.
No, please go ahead. I thought you'd finish.
Falmouth wants that, New Bedford wants that. We've just got to, convince either you or Rob. So, it's a discussion that is, in my mind, should not be going away. It should be tabled for right now, but it should not be going away. And I think, I hope I have Kate's support in that.
Okay, Catherine, you were going to say something? Ms.
I
Wilson?
just said absolutely. I agree with you, Maura. I think that it's a topic that we can't get into detail now, but the concept needs to be addressed, reviewed, considered seriously.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you. I'll throw in my couple cents. I also, Catherine, after you requested it, I would think our last meeting, that we look at the data. As I had mentioned in the prior meeting, I've spent most of July reading pretty much everything that's been written by everyone and minutes since 1995. I'd make a couple points. Many of the things that I was going to say in terms of looking at the data were covered by Mr. Jones. But I would say, one, that there was tremendous congestion in Falmouth and Woods Hole in the 90s as a result of something called guaranteed standby, where people going to the vineyard were allowed to get on the boat if they showed up. And that caused, on holiday weekends in the summer, backups to the traffic lights by the golf course. And there was considerable discussion about what to do about that. And ultimately, the vineyard voted and agreed to eliminate guaranteed standby. That essentially eliminated traffic through Woods Hole and Falmouth, and also eliminated trips, because the Steamship Authority no longer provided that to vineyard residents. Also, in terms of looking at data, I looked at the 2019 530 ferries coming from Woods Hole. There were 1,468 total reservations. 1,337 of them were food trucks. So 1,137 were food trucks of the 1,468 total reservations. I think that it's important to remember that just as the bridges are open to provide the necessities of life, whether that be food, or medicine or supplies for contractors or landscapers, that the ferries need to be open as well. And the 5:30 boat in the summer, and I would point out that the 5:30 Vineyard Haven to Woods Hole boat runs in the fall as well. And also, as was mentioned, goes downhill through residential areas, is part of what we have in our port communities, the port community of Falmouth, as well as the port community of Vineyard Haven. And so those would be the comments that I would make on the subject of the 5:30 boat and the schedule that was presented and recommended by management. So having said that, unless there's further conversation on the management request for consideration by the board, I think we could go to a vote. Is there a motion?
So moved.
I'll second
Okay.
it.
The motion's been made to accept the recommendation by management for the summer and fall schedules for Martha's Vineyard. Moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, so is the motion going to be to issue the report on the proposed 2021 summer operating schedules for the Martha's Vineyard route in the form attached to the staff summary, then to approve the authority's 2021 summer operating schedules for the Martha's Vineyard route as set forth in the attachments to the staff summary, and also to approve this 2021 fall operating schedules for the Martha's Vineyard route as attached?
That would be my understanding, but Ms. Tierney made the motion.
Yes,
Is that correct,
very, very well said, Mr. Davis. Yes, that would be it.
Okay.
Okay, the motion's been made and seconded. Comes to a vote. So roll call vote, please. All in favor?
Jones, aye.
Randy,
Tierney,
aye.
aye. Oh, sorry, Rob.
That's Jones,
Wilson,
Tierney,
nay.
Rainey, Malkin, aye. Wilson,
Nay.
Wilson, nay. Okay, we have a vote. We have 4 ayes and 1 nay. Thank you for the vote. Move on. And by the way, but thank you, Ms. Wilson, Ms. Tierney, Mr. Jones, Mr. Rainey, for your consideration. I know I listened to the Falmouth and Woods Hole people's conversation with Mr. Sayers. I thought about it. I reviewed the stuff that had been written about it on both sides. So I think everyone should know that this discussion and vote was taken with full information, and I think, at least personally, a tremendous amount of consideration. But thank you. Mr. Davis.
Okay, so next, at the January 21st board meeting, earlier this year, the members requested a comprehensive review of BIA Studios billing as related to the reconstruction of Woods Hole Terminal and relocation of the authority's general offices be conducted. And the staff just wanted to present its review at this time, and I'd like to turn it over to Council Steve Sayers, who run through this with a fine-tooth comb here. So, Steve?
Thank you, Bob, and welcome everybody back. It's nice to be back.
Why? You haven't changed a bit.
Oh, hardly. But yes, Bob asked me to do this back in February, and then COVID intervened, so I stopped, and then he asked me to resume it once everything looked as if we were going to be able to pay our bills for the upcoming year. And I think the spreadsheets that I attached to the report present a succinct picture of the charges that have been billed by Berto and iWorks or BIA Studio so far. And the report speaks for itself. The largest portions of the fees that have increased over the original contract sum are the construction administration costs for the waterside work, because we didn't know what those were going to be back in 2015. And those are pretty much straightforward. And they actually have not been as much as we've anticipated on a year-to-year basis. Those have been billed on an hourly basis, and there has been some money left over at the end of the years, and so we have decreased the amount outstanding as a result of this project. And the other ones are, the other additional fees are primarily because of the conditions required by the Falmouth Conservation Commission for the project. They have required an environmental monitor to have weekly meetings during the construction. They have required eelgrass surveys once a year, every July, for 3 years after the completion of the project. And they have required beach surveys twice a year, up until 3 years after the completion of the project. And those account for the largest amount of the increases. And that work is being done not by BIA Studio, but by its subcontractor, GZA. And most of the additional fees that the authority has incurred have been provided by GZA as opposed to BIA Studio. And then the second largest cause for the increase in the fees is the problems that we've encountered reaching a compatible or acceptable design for the terminal building for the Woods Hole community. And that has been a combination of looking at a number of different options after we had agreed upon the program back in 2014. And then finally coming down to the option that the board actually endorsed, I think back at the November meeting, to go forward with expanding the utility building by putting the employees on the second floor, and then making the terminal building a one-story building, and to allow more view from the Crane Street Bridge to the water. And those were delays in all of that. And so the contract does provide for additional fees resulting from delays. Those delays are now about 3 years. And the increase in the amount of unspent fees for the design development and the construction documents was about a 10% increase, which is less than 5% a year, which is what is provided for under the contract. We went through, I can try to answer any questions you have about individual change orders. There are 57. I did go through all of them. Many of them were what I refer to as kitchen sink change orders, because a change order might address things with the general offices, things with the water side, things with the permitting, but I've put those into each of the category as I felt they were appropriate. I've also looked at the billing practices, and I think the general sense I have for BIA Studio is that they have treated us very fairly over the years. They have not increased their hourly rates as much as they are entitled to under the contract. You have deferrals in their initial hourly rate increases, and then they're well below the 5% per year threshold that they were allowed under the contract. There have been some issues, but I think they're relatively minor. The contract provides that we are supposed to reach an agreement with them before the services are performed as to the upset amount of the fees they're going to charge us for a change order. For the most part, that has been complied with because it's in BIA Studio's interest to get that upset limit so they know they're going to get paid. But there have been instances where we have directed them to start work before that agreement was reached. And for the most part, that's understandable because it's those situations where to keep the project moving before the parties could turn their attention to doing all the formal paperwork. BIA Studio has now given us the truth negotiation certificates for all of the change orders that they're required to, as well as for their hourly fee rates whenever they've had increases. And their markups have not exceeded the amount provided for under the contract. And that's essentially my report. I think if we want to, my personal opinion is that if we want to keep the fees down in the future, we should probably reach agreement as to where we're going sooner rather than later, and then try not to deviate from that as we move forward.
Thank you for that,
Well said.
Mr. Sayers. May I ask a question? And that you hit it in your last sentence. Figure out where we're going and not deviate going forward. Since this started, I guess, 6 years ago. Where are we going? I've had conversations myself with Mr. Davis where we talked about staying in the existing footprint of the current building, the current temporary building, and on one floor, and doing some painting in the building off to the side to make it more appropriate for current use. And my question to the members of the board who've been here through this is, where do we wish to go? And where are we going? And what do we need going forward? So that's a question to the board as well as to management. Because I think it speaks to Stephen's point of view, which is we have to figure out what we're doing and then stick to it. Mr. Jones?
I totally agree with Steve's last comments, and I totally agree with yours. It's really, to me, it's been really frustrating that we just couldn't put a handle on what we're doing. We had delay, and every time you delay, it's another few $100,000, it seems like. And we still don't know exactly what we're doing. When I was, the first meeting when I was chairman, I said, and I've said this before, I said, I want to get this wrapped up this month, the next month. It didn't. It was a year later and it's still not, because it just, I feel that we as a board should have been more definitive of basically what we're going to do. We've had our meetings, we've had our hearings, and at some time you've got to make a decision. And this is to decide on the terminal, the color, the glass, the this, that, and the other thing. I mean, you know, just human beings are not going to come up with a unified answer to that. Just drive down Woods Hole Road and see that there's black shingles, there's gray shingles, there's brown shingles, there's houses with gray trim, white trim, and you asked all those people to come up with one house that would be satisfied. You're not going to find it. You're not going to find that on this here. So what it needs is we need to get as much of a consensus as we have, and this board just make a decision and get on with it. As soon as it's done, all the conversation and all of this will be gone. I said it before in Hyannis with the fire station. I mean, for about 2-3 years, we needed a 2/3 vote to pass this thing, and it was continual people lines up with the building's too big, it's too that, and everything else. Finally, we eked out a vote and stuff. I never heard another word about it. And all the stuff about being too big and it's being too that is gone. And I think that'll happen here. If you ask me what that building should be, you know, I would be looking for a Cape Cod style building. That's me. But we're getting, you know, contemporary type designs, which probably work better and things like this. But whether it be Cape Cod style, contemporary, or whatever, somebody's got to come and make a decision, and I think that's us. So I will take the blunt or some of the pain of not making a decision earlier on. So that's it. Off my soapbox.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
You may.
Just to, you weren't on the board at the time, but this past fall, we presented to the members concept, which was approved, which was a one-story building, flat roof. We were going to be incorporating solar panels on the roof, as well as over the bus pickup and drop-off area. This review request of BIA Studios billing was a result of following that approval of the concept. When we went back to look to see what the next steps would be with BIA Studios, there was additional monies that were being required for the design schematic and the preparation of the construction documents for that design. And when we went to the board, the members at that time requested this review first before anything could be done. So at this point, we've satisfied, we're presenting, hopefully it's satisfactory to the board, this review of their billing. And then the following steps would be, we've been talking with BIA Studios. They're going back and revisiting the timeline of the project because of the delay that's been caused, not only because of this review, but also because of COVID, and how that's going to impact the overall timeline on the project. We anticipate that at next month's meeting, we'll be coming back to the board with a request to fund the design process and the construction document process of the project.
So my question, and just quickly, the current design that we are talking about is for a single-story building to replace the existing temporary building that is the same square footage as the existing building with solar panels and some additional covered space for social distancing for people who are waiting. Is that correct or incorrect?
That is not correct. So the temporary terminal building, first off, is not situated. First off, it was designed as a temporary building, temporary use. We had to get variances in terms of being able to put it at the elevation that it's at, require a number of switchbacks, and it also was not built to hurricane code. So that building is not usable for long term. It was a temporary measure that we had to take. The building that we have is going to be situated north-south on the property. It ends up being closer. It's a little in front of where the temporary terminal building is, but also to the south. Where the temporary terminal building is now, that would be the drive-through lanes for a bus pickup and drop off, as well as for the intercity buses, as well as for the Cape Cod Regional Transit Authority buses. The building had a lobby on the north side facing the village. I want to say it's about 1,900 square feet. There's a hallway that went back to the restrooms that'd be located on the south side of that building. There was a couple of offices inside that location for the terminal agent, terminal manager, and also the ticket sellers. And then there was a mechanical room. The mechanical room was going to be situated within the building. It was going to have to be elevated because the goal is to have the building at a 13-foot elevation, but we'd have to dry flood-proof it for another 4 feet because of the flood zone. So the mechanical area of that building was going to be elevated 4 feet up within the building in order to address those concerns as well. We had a study done by the Woods Hole Group regarding the flooding of the property. The siting of that building and the plaza that we had intended, or that the architects had proposed, ends up being one of the driest spots on that property in the event of a flood. So that's where we were looking to do the building. We can forward you that presentation if you haven't gotten it yet. If you haven't seen it.
Thank you. Please do.
And if I may, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, you may.
In addition to the terminal building, what the board approved in November of last year was to expand the utility building in order to make the terminal building 1 floor instead of 2 floors. Most of the employees will now have to be housed in the utility building. So that building was originally going to meet different code requirements. It didn't have to meet as much, but now that it's occupied, the 2nd floor is going to have to meet certain code requirements. And there was a recognition back then that there are additional expenses as a result of expanding that utility building, but it was worthwhile for the Woods Hole community to have the terminal building be more in line with what they wanted to see rather than what we had originally proposed.
Thank you for that. I guess my comment on that is out of aesthetics and consideration, as well as fiscal prudence, it would be my desire, and I haven't seen the documents from November yet, that we have a functional, workable building for the terminal, particularly now that we're having remote tickets. We do have some need for some more social distancing for people waiting in weather that we could accommodate within, I think, a relatively modest building, terminal building. And if there are things we have to do to the utility building, I'd be interested in knowing what they were. That's my own feeling. And again, I'm new to this process. Mr. Jones.
Yeah, I'll just tag in there. One question that I know the answer to. Once you have that one-story building, is there any view of the water from the bridge?
I don't have it in front of me, but my recollection was that we were trying to site it as far north to on the property as possible to open up as much of a view to Broadway and Devil's Foot. I think with the one-story building also, it opens up some vistas. I will remind everyone though that there previously was a building on the pier there. So, it's depending upon the perspective of where someone is standing, the view may either be opened or, may have some obstructions.
So basically, there's a trade-off of between what we had and what we have now. Also, it sounds like that we're going to be putting solar panels on top of that, which will further interfere with the view. I can't say that looking down in the field of solar panels really accentuates the vista of the harbor. But in any event, those are the things that we're dealing with. I am totally in favor of moving forward in this, but we've got to have a meeting of the minds. And I don't think it's when this board finally makes a vote that every citizen in the community is going to agree with us, but we've got to do that.
Ms. Wilson?
2 points, Steve. I wanted to ask you, in the beginning, it seemed as if in the beginning, the idea and design concepts were developed pretty extensively before the community was engaged in any sort of dialogue. And then as time went on, it appeared from my perspective that Steamship realized that having that community engagement would probably enhance the ultimate goal of spending our money wisely, spending our resources wisely, and getting the job done. Do you agree that we could, going forward, continue to use that, I forget what the word was, where you were talking about getting the community together to review conceptual ideas before we asked our architects to go forward with the more detailed work?
Well, I think that is a commitment that Bob Davis already has made to keep the community engaged in this. And so that's already part of the expected process. I think the community is concerned because they have not seen anything since last fall. And so they suspect that we have been moving along in the schematic design, which we have not, because nothing has been approved financially. But I think that is part of the process that Bob has already said he planned to do. And that will be something that I'm sure that Chris Iwerks will include in his proposal for the change, unfortunately, necessary change order for this. With
But that
respect,
was, go ahead.
Yeah.
But
so
that
I-
was not part of the original sort of approach with the community.
well, I would slightly disagree because I've been here since the beginning of this.
Yep.
And Chris Iwerks, I think, was put into somewhat of a box because the design for the terminal building was to be consistent with what the feasibility study had arrived at. And the feasibility study had arrived at a building within a specific footprint on the property. I think it was 120 feet long with 50 or 60 feet wide. It was going to be 2 floors with a pitched roof, and it was going to be at elevation 13 feet. And so and since the feasibility study was approved, during the environmental process, I think the state officials came in and said, we don't want you just to be there at 13 feet. If you're going to have an elevation of 13 feet, you have to dry flood proof the building up to 17 feet. With all of those limitations, and also all of the program elements that we put into the terminal building, including the employee locker rooms, shower, restrooms, public restrooms, they were somewhat limited to the box that they could design in a way that would meet the floodproofing requirements. They would not be able to do a shingle style building because that would have to be replaced. It's not going to be a wood frame building, all of the design elements. And so what they came up with was something that was pretty much standard for that. It had some modern elements that people didn't like, but the major objections we got when it came out in, I think, October of 2018, is that people did not want a 2-story building. They did not want the building in that location. Everything that Berto and Iwerks had to do to meet with the program. And so we were surprised by that because all of that had been arrived at in a public process. We had had a meeting in June of 2014 where it had been presented, and we thought the community had pretty much agreed with that. We had gone through 24 or 25 different locations for the terminal building. We had, after that whole feasibility study situation had been situated, Falmouth Selectmen had come over to Nantucket to the board meeting and thanked us for all the community engagement we had done. And then we had presented it to the Falmouth Selectmen back in, I think, September of 2015, and no one had raised an objection to the building's location being 2 floors. So it came as a surprise to everyone back when it was presented in October of 2018, and it's now almost 2 years later. But hopefully we're behind that because we went through a long process. The community was adamant that they did not want it there. Chris tried to work within the program we had given him. I know there were slight changes, but it was a very difficult location. It's a very complex project. Whenever you even move the location of the building more than 10 feet, you have to redo all of the stormwater situation and the grading. Part of the big achievements of this whole project is the accessibility of the new terminal. So we're going to try to prevent that from happening again. And when Chris hopefully comes up with a proposal for doing the schematic design for this new concept of the building, the design development that he's going to include in there, community meetings where we can take into account within the parameters that we've given him, which is a 1-story building, solar panels. The only thing I would disagree with Bob Jones is that a lot of people are going to come over the Crane Street Bridge, go down and look at the solar panels on the top of the building and say, that's what the Steamship Authority should be doing. They should be coming and having, reducing their carbon footprint. And I think they're going to like to see those solar panels on the top of the building.
Thank you. Can I just add that I would like, as Mr. Jones said, and I think as everybody on this board has said, we'd like to get this thing resolved and get it off the table. So Bob, to extent that you can get us something by our next meeting so that we can then vote as soon as possible and get this thing agreed and moving forward. Mr. Rainey.
Just a point of order here. This discussion was about the fees for Berto and iWorks,
Oh,
and
good point.
we've gotten way off topic. So, discussion of the overall terminal in Woods Hole is not on the agenda. And, I understand it's part of this discussion, but it's not the main focus of it. So I think we need to stay on topic here.
Point well made and point taken. Thank you. Thank you, Ron. Mr. Davis.
All right, so that wasn't requiring a vote. It was just for information for the members, and hopefully that satisfies the members' concerns regarding the billing of for this process.
And thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve.
And
Thank you, Mr. Sayers. Nice to see you.
Same here.
All right, next, the staff would like to update the members on updates and amendments to the authority's published customer policies and procedures handbooks, and I'd like to turn that over to Terrence Keneally.
Morning. It's still morning. How's everybody doing today? I also would, Steve is still on the line. I want to thank him for all his efforts with regards to his review of the BIA studio and also the issues regarding the 530 boat. He did a great job, and we do appreciate it. With regards to this topic, the customer policies and procedures handbook, this staff summary was put together just for informational purpose only. Following the discussions about the medical travel policy and the updates that we made to that policy, myself and Sean dove into the customer handbook. It's probably 140 some odd pages. Going through that, we realized that we needed to make some grammatical and other presentation edits to the book, and also to update the policies that the board has been approving over the last several years, which I enumerate here from 1 through 5 on the front page of the staff summary. I also provide you with the dates that those policies were approved. All of those policies and all the updates have been made to the customer handbook. Our intention is to make the board aware that this book is going to be going up on the website, and that's in Sean's department. I don't know when that's going to happen, but when he gets, once we get the board's okay, we'll accept all the changes, get it together and get it up on the website for our customers' review. And hopefully that will answer all their questions. So if anyone has any questions about the handbook or any suggested changes, I'll be glad to hear those now.
Any questions for Terrence? Comments?
Hearing nothing.
None?
Okay.
Thank you, Terrence.
Thank you.
All right, so next, the well-anticipated treasurer comptroller's report.
Very funny.
Okay, so want to give an update for the July financials. We're looking at a net income of approximately $6 million for July. We're finishing up the closing out the books right now, reviewing the expenses. For revenue, on the revenue side, we're looking at passengers who've got to come short about 1.7 million. Automobile revenue was basically flat, and truck revenue was down about 100,000 for the month of July. Still projecting that $20 to $25 million loss for the year end. Good news is in July, we're able, or the beginning of August, able to make a cash transfer to the sinking fund, where we have the funds to pay our debt obligations, as far, i.e. the bonds, for the September interest payment of about 1.9 million, and the principal and interest for next March. And so answer any questions regarding the July numbers. Preliminary, that is.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Mark,
Mark.
Mr. Jones.
Not so easy.
I'm quick.
yeah, Mark, when do you, when are you going to be putting the budget together?
That'll be at next month's meeting. The preliminary budget will come out. We're working on that right now.
So how are you going to go about that? I mean, are you going to go like set up a budget the way we have now where everything is normal? And then give a secondary budget of this may happen?
Yeah, so what we're gonna look,
How do you correlate this year's figures where we always take our actuals and
Mhm.
put them into the budget? If we take and correlate our actuals, we don't have a lot of actual funds and income. So how are you going to go about this?
Sure, and I believe I mentioned this a couple months ago. We're going to start as a baseline of off of 19, and then do different options of if this happens, then we'd be needing to do this. Where the vehicle traffic's, for the last 3 or 4 months, the trends are pretty close to what last year was. In certain categories, and we see some dips in the trucks because special events weren't available. The biggest variable is the passenger traffic right now, and that's about 1/3 of our revenue, and that's where we have the exposure is, and how do we handle that on the budget? So we're looking at right now, we're trying to get everything into the budget as if it was normal, and then from there we're going to scale for different scenarios. If this happens, do we need this much service, or how do we pay for the service that we're providing based on the vehicle demand?
Do you feel that there's any way of creating a budget that does not show a deficit?
No, I have to create a budget that does not have a deficit. It has to be, I can't present a deficit budget.
Okay, so you're going to have to rearrange schedules and,
We'll be
just about
providing
everything. There's a fixed cost and variable costs.
Yeah.
A pretty difficult challenge, I think.
Yes, so we'll be providing different projections, but the first one is based on 19, and then if we're going to be at these categories, based on the past 6 months or 3 months, if we see these trends, then this revenue's got to projected to come in. What expenses do we need to reduce, or what revenue needs to increase to get us to where we need to be?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Suggestions?
No, it's just that passenger number. The passenger number is such a variable.
Yes, and and it's we're seeing the high speed is the higher price ticket, and that's bringing that revenue down number more down lower than what the actual percentage is.
Check. Thank you.
Mr. Davis, quick pause for battery change.
We've been asked for a moment for a battery change for the MVT.
Okay, doke. And we're going to next is what?
Procurement.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Okay. So next, staff would like to request the members authorize the general manager to award contract number 06-2020, dry dock and overhaul services for the MV Eagle to the lowest eligible and responsible bidder, Thames Shipyard and Repair Company of New London, Connecticut, for a total contract price of $1,917,691. So the Eagle's scheduled to enter shipyard October 21st, 2020, and be available through December 22nd to undergo Coast Guard required hull exam, rudder, propeller, shaft maintenance, coating maintenance, underwater inspection, superstructure work, as well as installation of a new fire detection system, to overhaul the bow and stern freight doors and the auxiliary generators and alternator overhauls. So the 2020 operating budget for this was $1,026,795. So the major discrepancies between what was budgeted over a year ago to now is that the blasting and coating for that vessel was originally budgeted for $92,000. It came in at just under $235,000. Blasting and coating of the top side and superstructure was budgeted at $155,000. It came in just over $355,000. Allowance for structural steel renewal was originally budgeted for $55,000. It came in at $207,000. The freight deck doors overhauls were budgeted for $90,000. They're coming in at $168,000. And then the generator overhauls were for $30,000. They were $205,000. So we're going to overhaul all 3 emergency generators on that vessel. And then a couple new items we had were in light of the dive boat incident out in California earlier, we anticipate the new guidance from the Coast Guard will be coming down. So one of those things is we want to put in a new fire detection system on board that vessel. And that's just under $200,000 for that. And also installation of a new fuel oil purifier system. That's $95,000. So we sent it out to 10 shipyards. We received back bids from 2. And at this point, we're recommending that the members authorize the general manager to award contract number 06-2020, dry dock and overhaul services for the MV Eagle to the lowest eligible and responsible bidder, which is Thames Shipyard and Repair Company of New London, Connecticut, for a total contract price of $1,917,691.
Mr. Jones?
Yeah, just a
Mr. John?
quick question, Bob. Just a quick question, Bob. On the steel, is that for a specific square footage? Is there an overage for additional work if found necessary?
Yeah, so the contract, and Mark will add to this, but typically the contracts, when we put it out there, we put in an allowance for steel that we anticipate will need to be done, and also get an assigned amount for any additional steel. One of the things that we've been doing now with the vessels as we send them to the dry dock is we've been doing more testing of the hull plate thickness of the vessels than we've done in the past, so that way we get a better sense as to where the wear areas are. But Mark may have something to add.
Yes, the Eagle is approaching 35 years old, and this is at a critical point in its life of protecting the structural steel from further diminution. And this way we can get a further life extension and have some options further down the line for life assessment and extension.
This is surface steel?
This is correct.
So does that mean that Thames thinks we're going to need less steel work done than Senesco did? I mean, the numbers were so different. So it looks like Thames is thinking we need 185 square feet and the other yard 500 square feet.
No, this was the same. This is the same amount of structural steel.
So how do you, the difference in price is like more than $300,000.
I think some of it is in the manner in which the particular yard structure their bidding process in terms of, white items that it's more costly for them to do as opposed to another yard, or vice versa. So, you see differences just in the docking and undocking and temporary services and things like that.
I totally get that. I'm just, there are 3 points that look like they're going to turn into overcharges. One is the anodes. One yard, it has them for almost 13,000. The other has it for only 3,000, but it's the same number of anodes. And there's not a lot of variation in putting those on. Not that much, $10,000 difference. And the shafts, bolts, and couplings, one has it for $500 and the other has it for $18,000. So it's almost like they're different, they're bidding on different, they're different specs or different expectations. I don't know, those jumped out at me as likely overcharges, and I was just curious whether there was something that ought to be addressed or looked at.
Well, I think it's also that people have a tendency to underbid purposely. I won't say to low bid something to get the contract, but probably it's more not towards that $500 range, but to the higher range. In the end, it level loads out with various items. Some shipyards may have a higher cost for doing coating applications and have a lower cost for doing steel. So they're bidding on the same process, so the same bid package.
So for instance, the anodes, there's a requirement that 160 anodes that either yard had to install, and we'll be holding them to that. And it's not a matter that it'd be a change order for those 160. So.
Mark, while Mark is there, question for you, Mark. Why is, at this bid package, why were our budgets so much lower than the bids actually came in some cases by significant percentages?
Well, again, as we have moved into our new ISM QMS projects, it's a higher level of safety. It's a higher level of attendance, to the specification. Coatings are much higher to prevent the protection of the asset, which is the vessel. This is a critical point where, you have a 25% diminution allowance. Once you start getting past that, you get into structural steel. This will arrest a lot of the potential steel in future dry dockings if you do a proper coating application. I know that there is a considerable amount of difference from the budget, not only in this, but in the other vessels, but I believe that what you'll see in the long term is lower pricing as a result.
Thank you for that. And I absolutely agree on the need to do it. I was just wondering, since we know that we need to
do these things, why we didn't have them budgeted at a higher rate.
Well, some of these items, there's, over about 300,000 of this is for items that weren't anticipated, 12, 14 months ago when those budget numbers were initially prepared.
Okay, 14 months ago, then I understand.
Yep.
Thank you. Anything further on this? You want to proceed?
I'll make a motion to approve this.
I'll
Thank you.
second it.
Thank you. The motion's been made and seconded. Any further comments or questions? Hearing none, it comes to a vote. All in favor?
Randy, aye.
Wilson, aye.
Malcolm, aye.
Jones, aye.
Ms. Tierney, did I hear you?
Tierney, aye.
Okay, you have it. You have that, Robert.
Okay. Thank you. Next item we have is staff would like to request a vote of the board to authorize the general manager to execute change order number 106 for contract number 16-2017, Woods Hole Ferry Terminal Reconstruction Waterside with Jay Cashman at a total cost of $137,771.20. This change order is for additional time and materials required to install the fender systems on the monopiles in slip number 2, the middle slip, the Woods Hole Terminal. During this previous summer, the tension chains on the monopiles in slip number 3, the northern slip, started to fail. We retained the marine engineering firm GZA to investigate the cause of the failure and determine that the original impact range, which was calculated from data collected in 2014, had changed. particularly the vessels where the freeboard of some of the vessels would be hitting their fenders. So this design change required the use of larger chains and iPads, and then securing the chains to the monopiles and the fenders, which involved using the crane, which became exponentially more expensive. So the staff recommends that the members vote to authorize the general manager to execute change order number 106 for contract 16-2017 with Salt Ferry Terminal Reconstruction Waterside with Jay Cashman at a total cost of $137,771.20.
Any discussion? Questions? Mr. Jones?
So if I'm hearing you right, that these chains were installed and found to be not heavy enough to carry the load or the contact. I don't understand with the design elements in this, why that we're coming back, to, are we replacing these with heavier equipment? I just need a little more information just to satisfy myself.
Yeah, so in terms of it is primarily the Sankaty. So the original data that was provided back in 2014 was for prior to us replacing the ballast system on the motor vessel Sankaty. So that vessel's hitting in a different range of on the fender systems. And a year ago, when we first started using the North Slip, it started putting the additional tension on the chains and causing the chains and the U-boats to start to fail. So we started to look at that. Another issue ended up being is that the tide data that was being used was not, didn't account for the total range. I think it was the impact range was the elevation 4.5 to 11.5 feet, but the elevation actually needed to be from 2 feet to 12.5 feet. So that caused the vessels to be striking the fender systems at different range, at different spots and causing the tension. So we addressed the issue on the North Slip, and then as we went forward, we looked at these other slips. And so for the middle slip, we ended up having to have to use much heavier chains and the U-bolts to connect them to the system. So.
Bob?
Yes.
Mr. Malcolm, may I ask a question? Weren't these things foreseeable though? They didn't just enter into this contract in a vacuum.
Well, the design basis was established in 2014 based on the information we had on the boats at that time. From 2014 to 2019, things changed with the boats. Tides are increasing, the climate change, the NOAA charts that they used in 2014 for tides were being exceeded at least 9 times in 6 months in 2019. So that caused the design data for the fenders to change. It went from, as Bob said, it went from +4 to +2. So it increased the moment by 2 feet on the fender. And that was the cause of the change, the failures.
Yeah, I mean, with all due respect, that all seems to be foreseeable aspects of marine construction design. I mean, it just, I continue, and I'm going to say this probably, I continue to be troubled by the magnitude of the Cashman change orders. I've had discussions with Bob Davis about this. I probably should have discussions with Mr. Malcolm about this. I really thought that we should have a review by somebody who's not involved in the marine construction area in this part of the country, about these change orders, because we're nowhere near complete on this project. And these change orders continue to come, continue to come, continue to come. And quite frankly, I have a complete different view of Cashman than does my fellow board member, Mr. Jones, and I get that. You know, we each have our own experiences that we bring to this board. But I'm very, very, very uncomfortable with the change orders. So, and I myself don't have the sufficient knowledge to be able to vote on it, but I'm not comfortable enough that, you know, we're scrutinizing these change orders in connection with the contract, in connection with industry standards, in connection with what's fair and reasonable, sufficiently for me to vote yes, and I have no intention of voting yes on this. Not that my 10% vote matters, but I think, you know, I'd like the board members to consider my comments. That's it.
Ms. Wilson?
So in the background, it's saying that it looks like the data was incorrect that was used. So we have Childs Engineering Corporation and we have GZA, and it looks like on 2 levels, the information was either incorrect or incomplete, and then the conclusions that were drawn on that data were also problematic. Is that, am I reading that correctly?
No, the
Okay.
data at the time in 2014 was correct, and we're using NOAA data in 2014 that was published and correct. What happened in between 2014 and 2019, design changes were made on the boats, particularly the Sankaty and the Governor, that causes the freeboard to be lower. We didn't get that data until, we didn't find out that data until 2019. We actually had to, GCA that went out on the boats and measured the freeboards on the boats.
So, and as a reminder, the contract for Cashman was awarded in December of 2017. So when the bid package was put together, we were using this other data that was based on we were using the data that was going from 2014, which now turns out to be incorrect data or not as fully accurate data. So therefore, the reason that we need to be able to make the change on these fender systems with the beefier chains.
Well, may I, with all due respect, my question, in addition to the concerns that Ms. Tierney raises, my question is our management of Cashman. If this was something that was known, I think was just said in 2019, why are we just talking about a bill for that issue now?
Because it was,
shouldn't we have been alerted prior to this?
The extra effort occurred in June. The extra effort with the work, with the crane and the welding, all happened this past June. That's
But you
why
knew it was going to happen in 2019. No?
we didn't know what the amount is going to be. We didn't have any idea what the amount would be. We didn't know what the effort was going to be. We knew we were getting new chains and pad eyes.
So the prior in 2019, we did have a change order to upgrade the chains and the U-bolts on the North Slip. So now with the second, the middle slip being done, we similarly had a change there, and it turns out that because of the impact range, that it required the use of the ringer crane, which ends up being a very expensive proposition for them to be using that for this purpose. So, just to be upfront here, we anticipate that we're going to have a change order going forward for the southern slip as well, because those changes need to be, they're specified at a certain size in the original contract. And now that size of those changes has been increased. And it's, getting back to Ms. Wilson's comments, that yes, that at the time, Childs Engineering was involved in that discussion, those calculations. But now that they've been replaced, and we're using GZA as the engineering firm on that. They've gone back and revisited this. And I would point out too that in terms of the oversight, we do have BIA Studios reviews all these change order requests from Cashman. We have GZA as well reviewing these change order requests, as well as Bill and our clerk of the works. So there is a process that these things go through.
But isn't BIA Studios, I mean, what experience do they have in this particular type of marine construction?
It's principally GZA.
Yes, BIA Studios, I can't imagine, is looking at these change orders.
I'm sorry.
Or would have the expertise to look at these change orders. So, it's my position that we need to get somebody independent to look at these change orders, because we're nowhere near, and someone not from the marine construction industry around here, and either, Bob, use some of your contacts in the western, the West Coast area. These change orders are outrageous.
Mr. Roney?
I think it's important to remember that this terminal has a 50-year lifespan. So it's important to get these things right now. And I think that a lot of the things that are anticipated a year or 2 years or even 3 years ago that have changed during the course of construction, and different things are being considered and sort of improved as we go. So there are going to be change orders. And I think, again, that it's important to get these things right now because of the 50-year life expectancy of the terminal. I guess I would ask, if we don't approve, what's the consequences of not approving this?
That Cashman comes back to the table. That's what it is.
But is it actually, is it on Cashman? I mean, this is really, Cashman is just implementing what the designers are telling him to do, right?
That's
yes,
right.
they were performing based on the contract that they signed back in December of 2017, which called for smaller, lighter chains. And now we find that we need to have larger, beefier chains. And so in terms of it, I think, we have two-thirds of the 2 of the 3 slips done. We'll be starting up here in another couple weeks. We can get the final slip done over the off season here, and hopefully a lot of these unknowns here, that's what's been coming up, or curveballs that we've been receiving on this will be minimized.
My concern is I share all the concerns that have been raised. I share the concern about doing it right for a 50-year project. I share the concern about change orders. I recognize we're in a marine environment, but my big concern, overarching personally, is our management of Cashman and our vendors. And Bob, you have to make sure that your staff is managing them, not simply observing, at the risk of sounding overly harsh. Where do we want to go? Mr. Jones.
Well, I have a little bit more faith in the system than perhaps some of what I'm hearing here. I've been involved and associated with a lot of marine construction. I'm not an expert in it, but I do know change orders are part of the deal. One of the questions I had is, why are we changing the draft, or I think you said the ballast of the governor and the sanctity? Why are we doing that?
Okay, so we've already done that. The issue is that the ballast systems that were on those vessels before, it kept the props too close to the surface of the water. So we needed to get the stern down on those vessels to make sure that we weren't egg beaters. So.
But why is that being done in 2020 or
It was done-
2019?
No, it was done back in 2014, 2015. But it was done after the original data was provided to the engineers at the time. So there was a disconnect between that work that was done and this project.
I can understand. Huh? I can understand, you know, the problem, but the way I build things, if it needs a 2x4, I put a 2x6 there. When we look at you know, just the sheathing and stuff like that, and the bulkheading that we had going back a year or so, and the fact that we needed to put in new tie rods or whatever the devil we did, I don't understand why that wasn't overbuilt and not just what appears to be marginally built. I don't know. But I do know when you get ships and the tonnage of what we have, it's better to overbuild than it is to underbuild. And I still don't really understand why we need this or why we didn't use bigger chains. But the fact of the matter is, it is what it is, and we're moving forward. It's always great to look back and say, well, we should have. I wish I could remember the quote. I'm just reading a book by Grant and talking about the fact that it's always easy to look back and think of what you should do, but the critics often, when things go wrong, really step up to the plate of the criticism. I'll get that quote to you. But in any event, I don't know, you know, we question the billing of the O&I works. We question that. We hired an attorney to go over the whole thing and has come up with the fact of, you know, basically ratifying all of the billing that he's done to date. But yet we're paying, you know, somebody else to come in, and I don't know how much money, to go over and have 27 pages of explanation to say he's doing just what he was hired to do. You know, and I think when we're doing this here too, you know, if we want to be assured of ourselves and hire some other consultant, so be it. But I, myself, unless I'm proved wrong, that I have a lot more faith in the system, the people that we've hired, than what I witness here.
Okay, I think we've discussed this change order quite extensively, and is there a motion?
Make a motion to approve it.
Okay. There's a second. It comes to a vote. All in favor, please.
Randy, aye.
Jones, aye.
Wilson, aye. Kenny, no.
Okay, you have your vote.
Okay. Thank you. All right, next item we have on the agenda, just want to advise the members of the authority's efforts to conduct some dredging, perhaps emergency dredging of the berth off the eastern bulkhead of the terminal in Nantucket. So back in June, the authority received a complaint from one of its customers concerning the depth of the water under certain tidal conditions next to the terminal building in Nantucket Terminal. The complaint stated that the customer was compelled to delay offloading of its hopper barge filled with stone because the customer's tugs and barge ran the risk of running aground in the shallow waters next off the terminal. As a result of the complaints, we engaged a marine consulting firm to conduct a bathymetric survey of the berth off the eastern bulkhead. We then hired had the engineering and environmental firm of GEI Consultants was engaged to evaluate the results of the survey and to provide recommendations as to remedial measures to address the that berth. GEI has provided the authority with a proposal for design and permitting of the associated with the proposed maintenance dredging of the berth off the terminal. They've also conferred with the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection, as well as the Army Corps of Engineers, regarding the proposed immediate dredging plan, and determined that it would qualify for an emergency authorization pursuant to provisions 310 CMR 9.20, but those would be only valid for 30 days. Accordingly, the authority must now consider arranging advertising, bidding, and contracting for this emergency dredge project immediately to avoid any potential groundings of not only of our customers' vessels, but our own vessels. It's an area that's close enough to where our vessels have to make the turns to get into the slip, and we don't want to be in a situation where under a tidal condition that our vessels ground. We don't anticipate, at this point, we don't anticipate the cost for this emergency dredge of the portion of the project to exceed $100,000. However, we're going ahead and proceeding as if this is an emergency procurement, and if as it involves the health and safety of the people and use of the authority's terminal property in Nantucket. So we'll let you know that when we're applying for this dredge, the permit that they issue is only good for 30 days. So we have to get everything lined up just right to make sure we can get this done in that time period. But we'll let you know, if the proposals do come back at over $100,000, we'll of course have to come back to the board with the recommendation in that regard.
Well, if this is an emergency situation, you do have to come back to the board. I'm sure the board would be able to have an emergency meeting to expedite this.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Jones.
To take in discussion, I got two comments here. When I talked to you before, Bob, about this thing here and reclaiming the spillage, have they been periodically going back to reclaim the spillage along the bulkhead?
Yeah, so when the barges are offloading at the dock there, they do have the ability. They do have ability and requirement actually to remove anything that gets spilled overboard as they're making that transfer to our dock. They do attempt that. The problem is that in some of these cases, the reach of the equipment doesn't get to that, where this is, and then we end up having the shoaling effect that occurs because of it. So,
does anybody else use that dock?
There's a number of different operators that use that dock. There's a resurfacing project that's going to be taking place over at the Nantucket Airport, I believe, in which there's going to be quite a number of barge movements because of that. Not this particular the customer that's noticed most of the problems, but this other customer that will soon be using that facility quite often for offloadings. So it's a well-used location. Unfortunately, we do have to have repairs to that location because they tie up at the face there and they damage the face, and we have to get repairs done. But at this point, the number of trucks that is taking off the road, we wouldn't have the ability to put these on our vessels with the current schedule.
Okay, if I, one other question here, something that we talked about too is the fact, and when they do this, of the danger of undermining the sheathing around the dock. As you recall, several years ago, that some of the sheathing and stuff collapsed in Nantucket and had to go emergency repairs on that. And is there, well, I guess, is there any danger? Yeah, there's a danger. So they have, I guess the best thing to say is that they really have to monitor that. And I believe that was dredged to a -17. Is that what that is? Am I correct? Doesn't matter from 14 to 17, but I think that's what it is. So if there is a collapse, what then? We're just in for more money.
Yeah, so we brought that to the attention of the engineering firm. We hadn't used this firm in the past. The firms that we previously used are no longer. Mr. Jones is referring to was about 10, 12 years ago. We were doing some work on some of the dolphins over in the North Slip over at the Nantucket terminal, and the whales, the tiebacks for the sheet piling failed because of the vibration of the driving of the piles, and it caused a blowout of the bulkhead there all along the northern edge of it. And I want to say it's somewhere around $1.6 million to repair it. So we did bring this to the attention of the engineers. We think that the belief is that at this point that the amount of material that's going to have to be taken out isn't so much that it would cause any problems, but we'll obviously have to keep a close eye on what's being done there. The question becomes is whether they're going to be able to perhaps do some dragging of that closest to the bulkhead area and drag it out and then remove it in that manner, as opposed to just scooping it out directly from there. Those are discussions that we were having with the engineer.
Yeah, well, the reason it's in my mind, we've had the same thing in Hyannis, and they put one of the docks out, the unloading dock out for several months. There's a big hole right in back there, which I assume is from the turning of some of the bigger boats. It's if you go to the end of that dock and go out, there's you look at the bathymetrics, and there's really a steep, big hole in that particular area. And I don't think that's got anything to do with the offloading of the barge, but perhaps the turning of the boats. Just a curiosity question. But anyways, all I'm saying is I've got to concern it, and we've got to keep, we got to look at it while we do it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Okay, we're coming up on 2.5 hours. Mr. Davis, let's move.
That's it for me.
Oh, well, that's responsive. Are we going? Do we need to go into executive session now?
We will, but I don't know whether you have any old new business anyone wants to bring up.
No, I think that unless anybody does, we could move to public comment before going into executive session.
Okay.
Okay. Mr. Salzberg got his hand up first. Go ahead, Rich.
Hi, good morning. Good afternoon, actually. I have several questions, the first of which would be for Mr. Munson, if he's still available.
Go ahead.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir. Relative to the procurement just voted on for the MV Eagle Were specifically the anodes and hull plating that might need to take place, the work that might need to take place on that vessel. Was there any electrolysis damage to the hull plating at all, or anywhere else in the vessel that needs to be addressed during that dry dock?
Well, the way it's done is when we get up in dry dock, we'll blast the hull down and we'll do ultrasonic gaugings of it. We really will not know the full picture until that is complete.
Is this a routine replacement of the anodes? Was there any kind of decay of the anodes that was not anticipated?
Anodes are designed to decay to protect the steel. They're anotic to the steel, so it's assumed that the amount of anodes you put in will degrade to 30% of their figure from the previous dry docking. It's a normal process.
Understood. Thank you. And one other question, if I may, would you be able to give an update on progress into the investigation of the counterweight failure and that mechanism, if you've made any findings to date?
That is still on. Go ahead.
Yeah, are you talking about Vineyard Haven?
That's correct.
Yeah, I think we already presented that at the board meeting a couple months ago.
Yeah, we had it was a failed bearing.
No, that is correct. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought you were looking into further into how that bearing may have failed.
We went through and we looked at all the structural drawings. It was exactly as the design of the bridge. So I look at it as a bearing failure. I will be going into no further evaluation at this point.
Thank you. I appreciate it. The other question I have is for Mr. Davis, if you would, sir. Over the weekend, we had an inordinate amount of people come to the Vineyard Haven terminal, largely, almost entirely due to weather diversions. So it's my understanding that the Steamship Authority vessels that were originally slated for Oak Bluffs went into Vineyard Haven, and also a number of passengers who were originally slated to be on the Island Queen because it canceled seem to have come to Vineyard Haven to get on Steamship Authority vessels, and the C Street came to Vineyard Haven, which mobbed the terminal and actually sent a line of people up Union Street quite a distance in the rain. And I'm just curious if even though it's perhaps not a common event, if you folks have any protocols in place to manage that number of people for just general health and safety in the midst of the pandemic, because social distancing looked like it wasn't happening, although mask use did look like it was happening. People were very close to one another in large number.
So it was a unique situation. We had a number of events, as you just pointed out, occurred. The weather causing people to head off island earlier, cancellations of trips into Oak Bluffs, the cancellation of the Island Queen and C Street. I want to say I think our terminal people, under the circumstances, did a great job. Our vessel crews also did a great job. We have instituted protocols in terms of how many passengers on board the vessels because of the social distancing. The captains looked at that and made some determination as to whether they could exceed those in some of the cases to try to get the people off. Had this not been a COVID year, all those people probably would have all just gotten on the island home and been on their way. But it ended up having that to be spread out over 4 or 5 trips. So again, it was a combination of all those things together. So, and yes, I am grateful that from what I've seen as well, that the people were at least wearing masks and as much as possible. So,
could an exacerbating factor have been the online reservation problem on Sunday? And
no, it had nothing to do. It had nothing to do with that. This is a walk-on passengers. This was not vehicles. and no relationship to this.
Understood. Thank you. And lastly, if I may, pursuant to the change order with Cashman and the slip and the chains, is there any kind of warranty for Child's engineering estimate on what the tides were going to be? Can you go back to them and say, you got this wrong?
Well, I think at some point we'll go back and we'll revisit it, but I think a big piece of this was that the data that they were provided by us in terms of the freeboards of the vessels had changed from the time that initially was provided to them. So
these changes are just pursuant to those two vessels, like none of the other Steamship Authority vessels that go into those slips. Did any of the other Steamship Authority vessels that would go into those slips need those changes, or was it only for the Governor and the Sankaty?
the freeboard on those vessels is lower than the other vessels, so they strike the fenders in different locations.
So just those two vessels?
I believe so. I'd have to double check, but I believe so.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate the time.
Okay, and we have one more, Mary Longacre.
Good afternoon, and thank you. Regarding the barge unloading on Nantucket, would the circumstances there at some point cause a limit to be placed on what weight could be barged in, or does the Steamship Authority have any control over the draw of the vessels that are allowed to dock there?
Yeah, so in terms of it, it potentially would impact operators trying to offload if they want to not put as much material on board a barge in order to avoid grounding. The other solution is to try to coordinate these offloadings with the high tide cycle, avoiding the low tide cycle as much as possible. But sometimes that's not as feasible as it sounds, and right now we're working on whether the town recently this past week approved a temporary permit for that for the operators to come at off hours to offload.
I understand that, but does the Steamship Authority control the weight or the draw of the vessels that are allowed to dock there?
No, we assign them times that when they're able to come to the dock, and they come with different materials. So
it would be up to the whatever company was ordering the delivery to decide how much to load on the barge.
Correct.
Thank you.
That's all we have, Mr. Chairman. You need to unmute yourself, Jim.
Mr. Malcolm, you're muted.
Got it. Sorry. At that point, do we need a motion to end the open session to go into executive session, or shall I read the notices first?
Read the notices first, please.
Yeah.
All righty. I'd like to entertain a motion to go into executive session at this point to discuss and approve the minutes of the authority's meeting of executive session on May 19, 2020, and to discuss the authority's strategy with respect to collective bargaining matters, because a public discussion of these matters may have a detrimental effect on the authority's negotiating and bargaining position. These matters include anticipated negotiations with the unions, Teamsters Local 59, SEIU Local 888, and MEBA, of all the authority's representative employees regarding potential continuation of health insurance benefits for furloughed employees due to COVID-19 virus pandemic. Public disclosure of any more information with respect to these matters would compromise the purposes for which the executive session is being called. After conclusion, we will not reconvene in public. So may I have a motion, please?
So moved.
I have a motion. May I have a second? May I have a second, please? Thank you. I have a second. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Rainey, aye.
Wilson, I.
Jones, aye.
Malkin, aye. Is Ms. Tierney there?
It appears she stepped out.
Okay. We have a motion to and a vote to go into executive session. As a reminder, all members are participating remotely and they may participate in executive session, but you'll state at the start of any such session that no other person is present and or able to hear the discussion.
We need to,
We need to adjourn this session before you get into that
Yeah.
part. So
we need to adjourn this and then we'll come back, we'll open up another.
if you all
Right.
want to sign off.
With our same reminder.
Right.
So
Sign back in
so if
and-
everyone will log out and log back in 4 minutes, that would be great.
Thank you.
Thank you.